It's Bottled Up with Daniel Posner, owner of Grapes the Wine Company, a fine wine retailer in White Plains, New York. The Wall Street Journal called me one of the most influential wine retailers in America. Here to remind you that wine does not have to be complicated, and it definitely doesn't have to be snobby. Bottled Up gives you a fresh idea on what to drink, insight into the new trends, and a real look inside the wine industry. It's not about tannins or tasty notes you can't pronounce. It's about enjoying wine with a fresh spin. And with me is my very special co-host today, winemaker to the stars, Christopher Carpenter. Welcome, Chris, to the show. Happy to have you.
Happy to be here again.
I'm going to let everyone in on a few secrets of Chris. He might be the greatest winemaker in Napa Valley you've never heard of, but as soon as we start talking about Chris, you are going to know exactly why I said that. Chris, you've been in the Valley almost over 30 years now?
Yeah, 31.
How many employers have you had in 31 years? Winemaker Carpenter.
Well, I've worked with the present company I'm with since 1998, and then I had a couple of internships and a couple of bartending gigs along the way.
And where have you bartended in Napa Valley, Chris?
I bartended at a place called Trevina, which is one of Michael Chiarillo's restaurants, for 2 years, and then for 23 years, up until COVID, I bartended at the Rutherford Grill.
Yes, and when I first started heading out to Napa, you could always catch Chris at the Rutherford Grill on Friday nights, I think it was.
Friday night, that's right.
Friday night was Chris's night, even while he was making wines for Jackson Family Wines, right? So if you've had some of the premium wines from Jackson Family, Lokoya and Cardinale, those are Chris's, I won't call them babies anymore because they've been around a long time, but you've been making those wines since 1998 and doing a tremendous job doing it. So very happy to have you here. Trevina, back in my day, when I started visiting Napa, Trevina is the first spot I had a wine called The Prisoner. By the way, 2004, I was with a winemaker having lunch. Had never heard of it. It wasn't in New York yet. He's like, you got to try this wine. And they brought out the bottle. I tasted it's pretty good. And sure enough, that winemaker was a person that worked at Baccio Divino. So nothing to do with it, but they were just like, this is the next big thing. So that was one of my Trevina stories, but that was a great restaurant back in the day. And what's Trevina called?
It's Charter Oak.
Charter Oak, right, because you could eat it right outside in that beautiful courtyard area. So let's get into the podcast. With that, we always start with our questions from the audience, and we have a great question as we head into summertime. This question comes from Kim from Brooklyn. Thank you, Kim, as always, for the question. And Kim is going to ask, and we're going to let Chris answer. Chris, if you are bringing one wine to a barbecue this summer that is not quote unquote crazy expensive, that'll blow everyone out of the water, what are you bringing?
I'm bringing a bottle of the Restricted White Blend, which is a side project that my team is involved in, coming through our tasting room. But it's one of these multi-variety blends that is high acid, aromatic. It's a great summer wine. The 23 that we're selling right now is Pinot Blanc, Albarino, Marsanne, and Chenin Blanc. And it's got all of those nuances of each one of those varieties with really great acid and minerality and energy. And it's an awesome. I was at a little anniversary party the other night, which was a backyard barbecue, and I brought a bottle of it. It was the hit of the day. It's only a $50 bottle.
2023 Restricted
White Blend.
White Blend. And where are these grapes coming from, if I can ask? Where are we getting Marsanne and Albarino in the
Valley? So that's the other thing is, these days with these white blends, it doesn't really need to come from Napa to have some kind of interest. So the Pinot Blanc and the Marsanne are from Bennett Valley.
Okay.
The Albarino is from Lodi, and the Chenin is from Alexander Valley.
This is a true field blend of California right here.
Yeah, totally. And we've gotten like Grenache Gris in the past, and Grenache Blanc, and fruit from El Dorado, from Napa. We've Semillon and Sauvignon Blanc. So the great thing about these white blends, they're just a really great place for creativity, and they're great summer guzzlers,
Production typically on Restricted White Blend.
250 cases.
I bet. Everyone check it out. I'm sure you can find it on Jackson Family Wine's website. Restricted White Blend 2023 sounds like a great hit for the summer. And with that, one of our most popular segments started out with guests in the store, but we call this one Bite, Sip, Taste. Chris travels all over the world. He makes wines now in Australia. He oversees a lot of projects for the Jackson family. So I don't know the answers he's going to give, but I am certainly looking forward to them. So your most recent favorite bite?
So my younger daughter just graduated from the University of Georgia, Athens.
Yes, go dogs.
Go dogs. And we went to a Italian place called Zizi and Simone's. And you're in Athens, out 2 hours outside of Atlanta. So you get, your expectations for the kind of culinary fare versus New York or Chicago or wherever it is a little bit more tempered. But this place was fantastic. We always do the traditional appetizer, then followed by a pasta, and then the mains, right? And the pasta we got was this orecchietta salsiccia with a pesto sauce, but the pesto was made with kale and basil. And that kale just completely transformed it. It didn't bitter it out. It gave it this fantastic texture and color. And then the salsiccia sausage that they had just enough spice. It was one of the best pastas I've had. And I eat a lot of pasta. I love pasta. It's one of the best pastas I've had in a really long time. And we had that with a bottle of the 22 Foradori Tirolda, which was a great combination with that.
All right. Awesome. So that's your favorite bite. Sounds delicious. You mentioned a little bit of wine, so a little bit of a cheat, but that sounds great. Tiroldigo, tough to come by. Is there any Tiroldigo in Napa Valley?
No, we used to make, in fact, when I first started working for Jackson Family, we had a brand called Pepe. And you mentioned Baccio Divino. They were one of our competitors back in the day.
Pepi, right? Pepi, was it
PEPI, yeah.
PEPI,
And that was when the industry was like trying to get on this Italian variety bandwagon that were grown in California. And there was a vineyard, I don't even remember the name of it, down in the Central Coast that grew Tiroldigo. And it was killer. And we used to get that variety up here. In fact, Foradori, the brand that I mentioned out of Trentino, was the model for the kind of wine that we made here in Oakville from Tiroldigo.
Oh, interesting. Well, it all comes full circle then. I got in Baccio Divino, one of my old-time favorite Cabernet Sangiovese blends, and you got in Foradori, and we didn't even rehearse. So imagine that. And you mentioned Georgia. Quick mention, Chris played football at the University of Illinois. What's that like to root for Georgia versus Illinois? Or are you still just, a line?
I root for them both. If they played one another, then I would go for Illinois. But during the years that Sadie went to Georgia, they won 2 national championships. And
Sure
they were
did.
led by a tight end who grew up with Sadie here in Napa, a guy named Brock Bowers, who's now playing for the Raiders.
So Brock Bowers, for everyone knows, since Jets references always comes through, the Jets passed on Brock Bowers as a tight end selection a couple of years ago. Everyone assumed the Jets would take him because he was a can't miss player, and nobody misses players like the New York Jets. So we passed on Brock Bowers. He catches probably about 110 passes a year out in Vegas. And that is unfortunate for us. So, thanks for bringing me back to that, Chris.
Listen, I'm a Bears fan, and until recently, I had to deal with the same things that Jets fans had to deal with. But you guys had to deal with Aaron Rodgers. Good for him that he landed at the Jets.
That's right. As a Bears fan, you probably hate Aaron Rodgers more than most. But you've had some good years there. We managed to pick up Justin Fields for a year. Thanks for that. That seemed to work out for us this past year. I think he played 3 games, and we're doing well. Whereas the Bears seem to be on the up and up, right? I mean,
we're on the up and up.
You're on the up and up, and the Jets are in the longest rebuild in sports history since 1969. But we will get there someday. So, all right, this bite sip tasting a little longer than normal, but that's okay. We love it. Your most recent favorite sip. What do you got for us?
So last night I went out for dinner with some friends, and we had a 18 Stallworth. We had an 86 Margaux.
Oh my God.
The wine of the night was the 2000 Chateau LaCroix St. George. It was young. It had depth without being weighty. It had energy. It had a great finish. And with the duck confit that I had, it was killer.
Wow. So 2000, great vintage, right bank of Bordeaux. And again, at my wedding, which was way back in 2003, I did serve 1986 Chateau Margaux. Just for my wife and I, of course, because we're that selfish. But at my table was 1986 Margaux. Everyone else had $10 South African red wine, but Joy had some Margaux. That was a great wine, but I'm sure 2000 La Croix St. George sounds amazing to me.
You got any of that in your shop, Dan?
For you, I'm going to hunt some down tomorrow, and maybe for myself. But yeah, I mean, 2000s are just home run vintage, right and left bank. But it's such a great vintage to enjoy right now at 26 years old. And how about overall taste?
Well, again, harkening back to my time at Athens, it was somewhat of an emotional finish for my daughter. I have a penchant for really cold, fresh Guinness. And the bar that serves the best Guinness in Athens is a place called The Globe, which is renowned for one of the places that R.E.M got their start when they were a new band in the Athens area. And I had several delicious Guinness, bittersweet, because I knew it would be my last for a while. And I had this great burger that went along with it that had bacon and cheese. And I was just in a really happy spot. And sometimes it's not just about the perceived quality of what you're drinking, but the moment. And that was one of those killer moments.
Overall experience. So bacon cheeseburger with a cold Guinness at the Globe in Athens, Georgia, is Chris Carpenter's most recent favorite taste of bites of I love that.
And I'm getting teary-eyed thinking about it.
Yeah, I'm sure. I bet you've graduated too now from UGA. So congratulations on that. That's awesome. All right. Well, we were now going to move on to everyone else's favorite part of the podcast and what it's named for. It's called Bottled Up. Scary one today. I'm going to field what's got me bottled up. As a retailer in New York for now 26 years, I have seen the movement, and Chris, as he's mentioned, has been over 30 years in the Valley and 28 years at one place. I have seen the movement of Napa Valley wines, particularly Cabernet Sauvignon, skyrocket in that time. And what has me bottled up is my inability as a wine merchant to sell high-end, fine Napa Valley Cabernet. I love drinking it. I love selling it. I love buying it. Chris knows I've been out to his wineries any number of times. I love bringing clients out there. And it's not an indication of anything that Chris is doing or his family of wines are doing. It's just the overall perception. For me, Napa Valley wines have gotten too expensive. Chris, when can we see some relief, if we can, or is there nothing in sight?
I think you're starting to see that relief now, Dan. The correction that is happening across the wine world, whether it's Napa Valley or Bordeaux or Bulgari, Chianti, wherever, the pricing is becoming more realistic. We have some higher priced bottles, but we've always been under the mean average on the category that we reside in.
Yep.
You're starting to see that shift. And, if you're not feeling it out in New York yet, you will be. Wine is becoming a little bit more accessible, as it should be. I mean, there are some realities of farming and the cost of goods, and the Trump tariffs haven't helped our industry whatsoever. We've been a global industry for 500 years. So you put tariffs on supply chains from France, Portugal, Spain, Italy, Germany, it impacts the whole pricing matrix.
And I'll just cut you off there for a moment, because just to be clear, what Chris is referring to when we talk about, it's not just wines from Spain and France and Italy getting tariffed. It's corks from Portugal. It's barrels from France. It's glass from Italy that maybe Lokoya or Cardinale or Mount Brave have to purchase, right? And those are, 10 to 15% or whatever they might be, just added costs in addition to even the post-COVID supply chain delays.
2 years ago, on average, a French oak barrel was costing us $1,000. Now it's costing us $1,400. That's pretty significant.
Yeah. And just my quick math, when you're making 300 bottles out of that, right? That's an extra few dollars on every bottle of wine, in addition to all the other costs. I mean, and obviously, look, in Napa Valley, to me, there's one simple problem in Napa, and I use the word problem in quotes, is the cost of real estate, right?
That has a lot to do with it as well.
Once your entry cost is it, and you see a lot of new wineries come in, new money come in, new producers come in, and right off the bat, I mean, you're buying the real estate. It's impossible to produce a great Napa Valley Cabernet for under, and I don't know, you could fill in the blank for me, but I used to say 100, but perhaps it's more. It's very difficult. It's one thing if you've owned the land for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, but if you have not, and you're just coming in, your entry point is extremely high. When what we're seeing is, and I know you talked about other areas and you mentioned Bulgari, and full circle moment again, my wife's all-time favorite wine is Massetto.
Another full circle moment, one of my favorite interns that I've worked with over the years just was named the winemaker at Massetto, like the associate winemaker would year, but she begins there in June. I'm very proud of her.
Okay. When you're looking at a wine like Massetto, I mean, when I started buying that personally, it was $100. Then I got to 200, then 300, and now it's $800+ a bottle.
Oh my goodness.
They make a second wine now called Massatino. It's $350 to $400 retail. That's the second wine, and so it's not all about Napa. I just, with you on here and your expertise coming from Napa Valley, but wine in general has gotten too expensive. Fine wine, whatever, even lower end wine, just wine in general, with everything going on in the world, so many options for people to enjoy other things, whether cannabis, RTDs, you talk about beer, craft whiskeys, whatever, even the resurgence of all cocktails, tequila, gin, whatever it might be. There's so many alternative options to just wine. 25 years ago when I got in the business, it was about wine. Maybe I would do the occasional shot of Jack Daniels and maybe a shotgun of beer in the parking lot of the Meadowlands. But beyond that, it was wine and wine and wine. And now you have so many other options. And with the prices going up, people just look at that and they're like, oof, do I need to spend $200, $300, $800 a bottle on a great bottle of wine? Where's the great wine? And when you look at Lokoya St. George 2000 as an example, that wine on release was, I'm guessing, probably $30. I'm going to guess.
How much you think it is now, Dan?
I'm sure it's like 75 to 100 now, I'm guessing. Right Bank suffers a little bit in that, particularly like Saint Emilion and Pomerol gets up there, some premiums. Obviously, many producers hard to come by, but the value play is harder to come by. It's still out there, as you probably know. You can still go to Napa and drink very well. If you want to avoid the big names, the large productions, perhaps, you can still hunt. And even in your world, and I know you touched on it, but like Cardinale for me is still on a relative scale exceptional value for the quality, right? And it's still a great wine. I love the story behind it. I love the wine. It's a wine we sell at Grapes every single vintage. So there's still value there for me in terms of that. And I love selling it. And obviously Lokoya are amazing wines. And Mount Brave, when if you ever go up to Mount Veeder and you visit Mount Brave and you see the price tag on that, you understand why that wine costs what it is. And it's not just going into Chris Carpenter's pocket as the winemaker. I mean, there's some real great terroir there. They're doing a great job and a lot of care. Then there's the balloon effect of some of those wineries being purchased. I think the last major one, Rombauer, over $1 billion. And now you're starting to see some scale back on that, which I think is where you're going to see that downward trend of pricing you're talking about. I don't know if we see, Schaefer was sold for a lot of money. I love Schaefer. We sell a lot of Schaefer, but you're seeing some pushback in the marketplace on Schaefer, whether it be just their Cabernet, their Chardonnay, and even their Hillside Select. For years and years and years, we were allocated a certain number of bottles, and now they're like, Daniel, how many do you want? It's a whole different world now out there, which I don't really like. I know it sounds great. Like, oh, I can get 120 bottles of Schaefer Hillside Select. I don't need 120 bottles of Schaefer Hillside Select. I'd rather them say, here's 12, 24 bottles and it's done, because then I can allocate it properly to customers. It's priced right and it moves through the marketplace. When people tell me, hey, you can get as much as you want, that means there's a disconnect.
That is part of the correction. I think we're going to see a drawback in the number of cases that are produced for these brands.
Yep.
The wine industry part, all the things that you mentioned, all the pressures from competitive drinks are out there, but then the oversupply issues are starting to catch up to us. And I'll guarantee you that ability to get those wines with the vintages that are available right now, in the next 2 or 3 vintages that are coming out, that'll shift because people can't afford to make that much wine anymore.
Right. And now humor me here. So if you're making less wine, and you saw this trend in Bordeaux 20 years ago, where you saw a resurgence in the second wines, whether it was, Petit Mouton or Clarence de Haut-Brion or Pavillon Rouge from Margaux, and you can get into the second gross and third gross. Everybody, you saw a stricter selection and higher quality of wines. Do you think with some of these wines, you will, obviously you're talking about less production, will we start seeing perhaps a value play?
What's even more likely is that all of the categories, all of the pricing categories are going to go down in volume. And so the folks that I was having dinner with last night, one of them was in the industry and he was spouting off some statistics. In Napa, there at the beginning of last harvest, 7% of the vineyard acreage in Napa was fallowed. And then there was I want to say, and I'm going to get this one wrong, but there was 8,000 acres that weren't picked in Napa. They weren't fallowed, but they weren't brought in as production. They were just farmed and then left out in the vine.
Yeah.
So that means those wineries are making decisions on the cost of farming, the cost of production, and the cost of carrying inventory. And whether it's a $500 bottle or a $50 bottle or a $5 bottle, if you're not selling it and it's sitting in inventory, it's costing you money. So everything volume-wise is coming back a little bit.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, when it becomes too expensive to farm it, produce it, bottle it, etc., that becomes that big correction. And that's something you always hear about in Champagne, for years, leaving grapes on the vine. And you hear about it, I hear a lot about it in Piedmont. And it's kind of depressing to think about that, that you're leaving all that good juice out there, but that's just the reality we're in. And
the reality is some of it isn't good juice. Some people planted in places that they shouldn't have planted because everybody was buying grapes, whatever the quality was. So, oftentimes with these corrections, they are painful. But in the end, everybody wins. The wineries that were doing it right, that were doing it responsibly, that were putting good product out there, they're going to survive. And the consumers, your customers, you as a customer of me, and then your customers that are coming to you are going to benefit from it because you're not going to be paying as much, and the wines that you'll be choosing from will be better.
Yeah.
It's just right now, it's just painful. That's the
Yeah, no, and I love the sound of it all. And that's what I go back to. I mentioned the Schaefer thing as an example. Like, I want to know I can't get any more of the wine because I want to be able to tell a customer you can't get any more.
Yeah.
We just had a 2023 Dominus just released. And obviously Dominus, as you know, is obviously an iconic wine, iconic vineyard, and Christian Moex, iconic man. But and they make a lot. It's a very large production, but he really took down the price of his wine in that vintage. And I had the opportunity to have lunch with him. And one of the questions asked amongst the handful of us that were with him was, why such a difference? They didn't make any 22 Dominus, right? So they trashed that vintage. They felt the wine was not up. It was too hot. The alcohol level was too high. So they went through the process of nearly making it, going through everything, and shortly before bottling decided not to. So they had no 22, and then they come into 23, and the big price difference from 23 versus 21. And people asked, well, why is the price down like 25%? And he had a very, I think, responsible answer. And he's Bordeaux, so he knows kind of that world of the negotiation. He's like, we have so much wine. I would hate to think that I'm going to sit on it. I just want to sell it, which is kind of commendable. And obviously he can do that, right? Because Dominus has been around for 40 years, 45 years or whatever it is, 83 first vintage, and he really owns it for the last, 35 to 40 of it. But, that's what I like to see. So to your point, I don't mind the high price if I can move through it and tell people, look, I can only get 12 or 24 bottles, or if I can get more, I want to see a correction. Certain wineries have come to us and been like, Daniel, we can get as much as you want. We haven't raised our price this year. I'm like, I don't think whoever's consulting you on economics is not doing, you need a refund on that. The answer isn't an even price. You need to roll back your price if you're still making that much wine. So certainly the other responsible thing to do is to make less, make it premium, and make people want to have it, right? And that's, and obviously you guys make small quantities of a lot of your wines. Your Lokoya single vineyards typically are, how many cases are we talking?
800 to 900 per vineyard.
Right. And tiny. So that, which is great. So, certainly less of a problem there. And theoretically, but how many single vineyards are you making? 4 or 5?
Big 4.
4, right. So that's, that's 3,500 cases of wine to move through. Not a small quantity. But I do hope there's a correction in the wine world in general, and specifically Napa, because I do love Napa and I want to be able to sell more of it. As you know, we've had a long history together with you and I and Grapes and Jackson Family and Spire Collection and all the premium wines you're doing. And I love being able to present them and getting people out there to taste them and want to have them.
So you and I have to deal with Tom Gannon.
I know Tom since his Rothman's days. I think I met him in 2004. So 22 years of knowing Tom Gannon. And I don't know if you ever met him when he was at Rothman's or just when he started working for Spire.
Right. So I totally met him there.
Yeah, so he's a legend in his own mind. So we love Tom and everything he does, but that also adds a little bit of a vig. Certainly to the wines we're buying. So, but a pleasure to have you, Chris. I think we're going to call this one right here, right now. Great always to chat, great always to speak, and congratulations on the family, on Sadie graduating UGA. And I do hope you get it back out there for a nice cold Guinness. And I hope Illinois does what you expect them to do this fall in the college football world.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate it. Good luck to your son, who's hopefully will make a great college player in a couple of years, and good luck to your Jets. I feel your pain.
Yeah, well, my son doesn't give me much frustration, just a little bit as a parent, but the Jets certainly give me a lot of agita. So thanks for reminding me as always. But great to have you, and look forward to welcoming you to New York soon, hopefully.
Yeah, I got to get back out there.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And with that, thank you everybody for listening, and we will see you soon. Thanks for hanging out with us on this episode of Bottled Up. If this episode gave you a new bottle to try or a new way to think about wine, share it with someone you'd open a bottle with. Subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And as always, drink what you love. I'm Daniel Posner, and we'll see you next time.